Hey everybody, welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Rabun,
And I'm Tiffany Salcido.
and we are a couple of road warriors warring the road right now.
Yes, a
Oh,
very wet and cold road.
yeah, and it's kind of overcast and ugly here in the Bay Area, but you were dealing with rain, huh?
I started off in Ventura this morning and it was raining there, and then it followed me all the way home. And now it's like pouring outside. We're expected to get like an inch of rain tonight, which doesn't sound like significant to many people, but an inch of rain for us means flash floods, baby. And they're
California,
already
yeah,
out
yeah,
there. Yeah. So the
yeah.
roads are already off. We haven't had a good rain in a long time. So like there's puddles everywhere. And I don't know, I hate Southern California drivers because it's like as soon as it rains, everybody's like, we should go 400 miles per hour. Like let's go fast. Oh, we should get real close to each other. That's save time. Like I don't know what it is, but I am a nervous wreck now because it was a very crazy, wet, wild ride on these dang SoCal freeways.
Yeah, they can be crazy. They're just crazy in dry weather, let alone wet weather. But
Wet
yeah.
weather is way worse. I don't know what I'm telling you. It's like I always, as soon as the first raindrop falls, I'm like, oh great, now everybody's gonna be wild. At least when it's dry, you have like at least your tires are hitting the road. But when it's wet, especially if it hasn't rained for a long time, the roads are so slick because all that oil comes to the top, and then it's just people are just slipping and sliding, crashing into each other, and then you're just stuck in traffic forever. It's so stupid every single time.
Redonkulous. Yes.
That's that's why people don't like California drivers. I mean, we're cool people, but we just can't drive.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess we can. We just we can drive right into each other on a regular basis. That's all.
that's right. Yeah, we like crashing into each other. Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's right. And we like our roads when they get the first set of the first slickness. All of a sudden, potholes come everywhere. You
Uh-huh.
know.
Yep.
Yeah,
So much fun.
yeah. Had a pothole eat my wife's car the other day. So mad.
I don't do a lot of driving. I am driven nowadays. So that sounds like kind of funny. Um, but my husband, he plays Frogger. He can see a pothole a mile away. So a lot of times I'll fall asleep in the car and then we're like, and I'm like, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm just dodging potholes right now. But he's got top score right now, top score on the Frogger game that we play, the pothole Frogger game. He's winning. We haven't hit a big pothole, but um, I also haven't got a moment of rest because I'm all over the place, dodging potholes.
It's funny. Dodging potholes. It's
Hmm.
funny. So yeah, I don't. I'm dodging potholes, but I'm also just dodging overcast here in the
Yeah,
yay
yeah, yeah.
area.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
we can start in Fresno
Hmm.
and drove up here last Tuesday, Monday night. That's the thing. That's the thing, guys. You get on the road too long, you forget what day it is. Right? I
Like, yeah.
feel like, good morning, Cleveland. Here in Oakland. Oakland.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm always happy to be at the right place on the right day. It's like, seriously, so much joy in my heart when I'm like, oh, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. All right, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Such is the life. Such is the life.
Hmm.
So, Frogger made me think. My question for you
Ooh.
is, well, let me just ask, were you a video gamer when you were younger? Like arcades? You ever go to
So,
arcades?
so yes-ish. Okay, so yes-ish. I'm gonna say that. I don't
Okay.
necessarily think I was an arcader because I wanted to play video games, but there wasn't a whole lot to do in my little town, and we did have a little arcade, and that's where everybody would hang out. So I would hang out because that was the place to hang out. But then I had a crush on a boy, and the boy and his friends would hang out at the arcade. So of course I was very into video games for a period of time because I that's where the boys hang out. And so I was a little boy crazy back in the day. Um,
So my question of choice is, what was your video game of choice?
Street Fighter 2. Oh, so in those days that I can like in my arcade days, Street Fighter 2. But I also will say lifelong is Miss Pac-Man with the turbo chip in it, where it goes real fast. Because you know there's a difference, right? And so Miss Pac-Man is like my go-to. I can't if I see a Miss Pac-Man anywhere, I'm gonna play. Like still to this day. I have carpal tunnel, frozen shoulder, sciatic nerve pain, plantar fasciitis, and I'm still gonna get in the stance and I'm gonna get me some Miss Pac-Man, let me tell you. And take 4 ibuprofen when I get home. Um, and I also love all pinball, but the Adams Family pinball is my favorite of all time. Those were my games. But Street Fighter 2, I love Street Fighter. And I was always Guile, the army guy. That was my
Okay,
with the
okay,
uppercut, and the
yeah,
body slam. That was my
yeah,
homeboy. And the choo
okay.
choo choo choo. Yeah,
No,
that's my
no
dude.
Chun-Li, huh? No Chun-Li.
I wasn't Chun-Li. I wasn't girl. I wasn't all about girl power. It was about that uppercut. I love that uppercut, and I love the body slam because I knew how to do it. That was the only move I knew. So that was my favorite thing. What about you? Were you an arcade guy?
I was an arcade guy. There was an arcade in our mall, right? And
You had a mall? We didn't have a
had a
mall.
mall. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, had a
fancy.
mall where I lived. And you know, I liked a bunch of different games, but I really actually not at the mall, but at the A&W, which is now a Wendy's. But I used to take the bus home and I'd get off and I'd get me a root beer float and I'd play Tempest. You ever play Tempest?
Mm-mm, never even heard of it.
It's because you're not old like me, but it has a dial and you turn the dial and it has like this circle and these weird monster alien things come out of the circle towards you and you have to kill them before they get to the tip of the circle. And so your dial
Mm,
spins and you can choo 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 and you're pressing the button and it's killing these things. And some of them are bigger than others, some of them need more killing than others, right? And I really enjoyed that. That was something that was a lot of fun at A&W. And then at the mall at the arcade at the mall. I like I can't remember which the football game it was. Quarterback Club, I think it was, or something. That was a lot of fun. But my Street Fighter 2 character was Dhalsim,
okay.
extra arms. I actually
Hmm.
learned how to win, and I think I flipped the game a couple times just with that getting low and the little
Yeah,
slide thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
with the long, it
And when
was
the leg
cheating.
would go,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, I hated that
yeah.
move. Oh, I hated that
Or,
move.
or he'd get down and go, zoom, and his arms would
Hmm.
come out and hit you. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
But it was that I learned to flip the game with Dalsim doing the little shuffle thing, which I was also able to use in Tekken with King, who does the little side shuffle, the wrestler with the jaguar face. So yeah, I was. Anyways, yeah. So those are my Street Fighter Tekken people. I was good, and it didn't feel like cheating because I won.
Yeah, that's true. Usually the winner doesn't realize they cheated until it's
Yeah,
just strategy. It's just strategy. Let's call it
yeah.
that.
But I like the quarterback game because it showed you your stats, and
Oh,
you put your initials in, and it carries over your stats until they turn off the dang game and then reset your stats, which pissed me
right.
off. But yeah, so that was fun.
I
Favorite
yeah, I
game.
I did have a period of Mortal Kombat and
Hmm.
I was Sub-Zero was the one I liked and Scorpion. I love Scorpion. Get over here. That's I
Yeah,
still I every time I grab my kids and I go to give them a hug, I do that same get over here every single time, just like Scorpion. But that was only because again, the boy that I had a crush on, I don't have to tell you that whole story, but his name was Sergio Nuno. So Sergio Nuno, if you're out there, you missed out, buddy. Let me tell you, your whole life could be different right now. But he had a brother and like a group of friends. They were called the crew. The crew. It wasn't a gang. It was like literally like a group of like the nicest young men like you could ever imagine. But I was like the only girl that would hang out with them, and it was so funny because again, where I lived at, it's a really small town, and um, we lived on like the main street on like an upstairs apartment. And so when I would walk, we would just all walk around town. There was nothing to do but walk around and go to the arcade. So we would all walk around the crew and hang out at Crew Corner, which is basically in front of Sergio and his brother Lupe's house. And then we they would walk me home, all the boys. There would be like 5 or 6 boys that would walk me home, and my dad would be like, if they would come pick me up, all 5 or 6 boys would come by the house to pick me up, and my dad would be like, "You better bring her back if it's dark outside." And so they would walk me home. Like those are
Oh,
like really like cool. Like I have really good memories of that period of time. I Sergio and I never worked out, just for the
yeah.
record. No,
Oh,
never worked out, which is kind of good because I had another growth spurt and I'm like almost 6 feet and I think he's still like 5'3". I'm not sure. I don't know if it would have worked out. I would have had to carry him out like in a backpack or something. I hope he's doing well though. I hope he was nice. The whole like that whole all of those people, like all of those guys, I hope that they're doing well in life because they were really like really nice teenage boys. Like I can't like none of them ever were disrespectful to me. Like they were it was just they were cool dudes. So I wish them all
yeah.
well. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyways,
How
I'm
was
all
that?
smiling. I'm all my little 15-year-old girl's all smiling on the inside right now. They were cool dudes.
Right on. How was the
I have
Sub-Zero guy in Mortal Kombat?
yeah, Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero or Raiden or Kano? Usually
hmm
Kano would work. I like Kano. Yeah.
My youngest son was a Raiden guy.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. We played that a lot. But okay, so those were like arcades, but can I say like home video games?
Mm-hmm.
We were a Guitar Hero family. We
Hmm.
had like the guitar, like the rock bands. So we had the drums, the microphone, and the guitar. And we went hard as a family. Like I'm telling you, as a family, we would like dress up and I would buy the kids like those tattoo sleeves that would just like go on their arms and we would spike hair and we would get into costumes and we would like do rock bands. We would have concerts and we would take turns and um gosh, we would have so it was my sister, her daughter, and my 3 kids, and we would just have this whole like night taking turns. Like, I don't know. It was the best. Those were good days too. There's like certain songs I hear that were from that, like the version we had, like 30 Seconds to Mars. I can't remember what the song's called. I could sing it for you, but I'm not going to. No Doubt, Spiderwebs, that was like one of my faves. My son Eric could play Eye of the Tiger. And mind you, this kid was like 7 or 8 years old with these fat little sausage fingers. And he would like carry the guitar around and like, I don't even have to look at the TV playing Eye of the Tiger, like all by himself. I mean, it was just, oh, so many good memories with Guitar Hero slash Rock Band or whatever the hell the game was on the Wii. We really had a fun time.
Have you ever seen the air guitar world championships?
No, but air guitar is traumatizing to me, and I'll have to tell you.
Oh,
When I was in 8th grade, okay, I lived right down the street from the school. I told you, small town, like it was maybe 10 houses. And my mom, when I was in 8th grade, I was involved in like everything student council, letter carrying with the band, cheerleading, volleyball, big pentathlon, like you name it, I was doing all of it because I didn't want to be at home. And so I wasn't like running the streets at that age. So I just was super involved in school. So my mom decided that she wanted to chaperone one of our dances. And I was like, you can chaperone, but please don't embarrass me. 8th grade. Think 8th grade, like very weird social time for kids. So
mm,
I avoided my mom at that dance as much as I possibly could. She was on her best behavior for the most part. But all of a sudden, I don't know if you remember back in the 1900s that people would do dance circles and like everybody would get around and there'd be
yeah,
someone in the middle, whatever. So I
yeah.
see like this crowd of people, this crowd, like big crowd doing this dance circle, and everyone's like cheering and woo. And I'm like, oh, I want to get in on this. And I
And your
go
mom.
over there. My mother is in the middle doing air guitar, like, wait a minute, like just getting it. And I was like social death. I will never be able to come to the school another day in my life, ever. So every time I see the air guitar, I remember that moment. Now, mind you, everything was fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. Nobody cared. But in that moment, I was traumatized.
Uh,
Traumatized. Thanks, Mom. I never told her when the dances were ever again. Never told her again. We're not doing that again.
yeah, I, 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 I understand why. No, no shade on Mama, but yeah, I get it.
So they have air guitar. Tell me more about this air guitar championships.
So they have an air guitar championship on ESPN2, which on Saturdays they turn into ESPN8, the Ocho,
Oh,
which is from Dodgeball. Remember the movie Dodgeball?
yes.
They literally turned it into ESPN8. They have logos and
Oh
graphic
my.
art and everything. So they have the World Tag Championships where people play tag, air guitar, kickball, ultimate frisbee.
My gosh.
Yeah, right. So
Hilarious.
yeah, so people who would never watch ESPN are now like killing it on Saturdays, I'm sure. Right. But anyway, so this they had the air guitar championship and I watched it. Just I saw one person and they said she was the former world champion. She was terrible.
Like that break dancer lady, like that one from the Olympics.
It might have been her. It might have been Reagan. I don't know. But I immediately said, if this is a former champion, where the hell do I sign up?
Right.
I want to get paid. I know that I could out champion her. Right. Anyways, so yeah,
Love
the
to
air
see it. I
guitar.
vote for you. If it's like American Idol, I'd vote for you 10 times for my touch tone phone.
Yeah, no American Idol. It would be fun.
I'm gonna have to tell my mom she's retired now. Maybe she can become an athlete now on ESPN doing air
On the
guitar. She's
Ocho,
got years of practice.
ESPN 8, the Ocho. Remember that on Saturdays. Tell your mom.
I will tell her. Give her something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, I pulled a question from my random book of questions,
Okay.
and my random book of questions asks, "What comforts you on bad days?"
What comforts me on bad days? I guess what comforts me on bad days is knowing I have a house to come home to and, a family, my kid,
Mhm.
and my wifey. And no matter how bad it gets, you know, just the levity and the smart assness always helps. And also just having some time to myself, right? Just having some real time to myself helps me to kind of pull out of that and recharge my battery. And I just need a few minutes, right, to be able to um, just come to that realization of, well, it's bad, but how bad is it,
Mhm.
right? And then I'm able to come back, So I need a few minutes to myself, um, and then just thinking about what I have, and as bad of a day as that's the one thing about working for the county. As bad as my day is, I've seen people have worse,
Mhm.
right? And not that I'm glad. Well, at least you're
Right.
not one of those people, but just
No.
put everything
Yeah.
into perspective. That's an important piece. So yeah.
All right.
How
Gratitude.
about
Very
you?
wholesome. Very wholesome answer
Yeah.
there. I think what comforts me, I I'm gonna maybe my answer is like going a different direction, but like the activity that usually like centers me is I cook. I cook.
Hmm. Okay.
I get in the kitchen and I make something. And usually like something is many things. I can't like not that I didn't have or I had a bad day the other day, but when I'm like overstimulated or feeling like things are kind of out of whack, that's like where I go to kind of get centered. And so the other day I was baking bread and doing making soup and all kinds of fun stuff in the kitchen. But it did like help me be centered, I think, because I felt better after that. Um, and then this other's like still, I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And I don't mean it like in any sincerity, but it's just like a funny thing that I don't even know where I got it from or where it originated, but it just is a staple in my life. And it's at least I'm not ugly. Like I say, like no matter like I say, and I give this like to my kids, to my friends, the people I love when they're suffering. And it's like, I love you. I'm here for you. And, what do you need? And whatever. And it's like a big, deep hug. And then I always say, whatever happens, at least you're not ugly. Like, think about how hard it is for those people. And that almost always gets a laugh. And I
Yeah.
laugh because it's so stupid. But, I've been saying we've been saying that. I've been saying that to my family for years. Well, at least you're not ugly. And it works for us. It works for us. We don't take things too serious.
Well, it's a
And that
good thought.
comforts me. And that comforts me.
Comforts you that there's ugly people in the world and you're
And
not
at
one of
least
them.
I'm not
See?
ugly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, look,
Mm.
I'm not a supermodel. I'm not going to be on Vogue magazine, but I have to say, I'm
Who
not an
wants to
ugly
be on
person.
Vogue magazine?
Yeah.
Who wants to be
And
on Vogue magazine?
lots of people, but I just don't happen to be one of them. But I also think it's not just like physical appearance, what I'm talking about either, I will say, because ugly, I think, comes from the inside. Ugly comes from the inside. And so at least I'm not ugly. You can vote. You can be on, are you going to be on Vogue? Or are you just going to be in the Vogue video? Vogue
It's my
video. That
heart.
sounded really weird.
It's on the inside.
Yeah. No, I mean that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people who are attractive on the outside that are very ugly. So
Oh,
ugly is from the inside. So at least you're not ugly. At least I'm
yeah.
not ugly.
Yeah. I've dated a few of those. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Prince wrote a song about it. The beautiful ones.
Baby, baby,
My
baby,
favorite Prince song. Oh, I
baby,
love that song. Ah, now I'm singing.
tonight.
That's my favorite Prince song, in case
That's my
anybody
favorite
wondered.
part of the movie
I love
when
it
he
too.
says, "Do you want him or do you want me? It's want you." And it
Oh,
pans into her,
yeah, and
and
she's
she's like looking at him,
yeah,
and he's like, "Do you?" And Morris just fades out of the camera and just goes straight into her. My
yeah,
favorite part of the movie.
love it, love
Yeah,
it.
I wanna know. I wanna know. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay. I know I'm sidetracked right now, but I have to just say too, this has nothing to do with any of the questions, but I'm thinking about Purple Rain being like an old movie, like a classic movie everybody should have seen at some point in their life. I just watched Casablanca for the first time the other night.
Did you
I had
watch it?
never watched it. I watched it. It was interesting. I had never watched it before. It's funny, like acting and how far we've come in terms of like storylines and plots and stuff like that. I know it's a classic movie and it's from the 40s, but I'm like, put Leonardo DiCaprio as like I don't know, maybe again, it
He
was
couldn't do
interesting.
he couldn't do the witty banter that Humphrey did, that Bogey did.
I don't know. I
So
don't know.
did do you know that Casablanca is my favorite movie of all time? Have I disclosed that
I
to
did
you?
not know that. I
Yeah.
honestly did not know that.
It to me it is the best written film of all time.
Yeah, it was very
And
good. It was interesting.
it's all dialogue. There's no special effects. It is the dialogue carries the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it always I'm past chuckling now when I watch it. I just have
Mhm.
this like just I'm always giggling just because Claude Rains, the Captain Reno, is my favorite character of
Oh,
all
he's
time.
hilarious.
I
Yeah,
wish I
he's
was
hilarious.
him, right?
Yeah.
And but then my my favorite, see, and this is a quiet escape. You said we've come a long way in terms of dialogue and stuff, so there's no cussing in it, right? But did you see the part where the young girl, Hungarian girl, she comes to Bogey and she's like, um, oh well, Captain Reno says he'll give us passes to go if I pretty much she says if I sleep with him,
Right, right, right.
right? And so she says, well, Captain Reno, you know, saw us today. And he said, "Oh, is your husband with you?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, well, Captain Reno's become broad-minded." He just goes right past everyone's head. It's the funniest fucking thing. I'm sorry. Ooh, but it's the
It really is.
in the 40s. In the 40s,
Yeah,
right? Captain Reno must be broad-minded. I'm like, okay, all right. So see, if you're not paying attention, you miss those gems. It's
yeah.
hilarious, right?
It
It's just like,
it kept me up. I stayed up I haven't stayed up and watched a whole movie in a long time, and I thought, "Oh, I'll put this on and I'll watch a little bit and fall asleep." But I watched the whole thing.
it's
And
a
then I thought,
brisk movie. Yeah,
yeah, and I just was like, "Oh my gosh, so many of these lines that you hear all the time, like all the gin joints in all the worlds, you had to walk into mine, right? And
yeah,
this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship."
yeah.
I was like,
We'll always
"Oh,
have Paris. Yeah,
yep, yep, yep. Here's looking at you, kid." And
yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's where all this came from." Okay, so it was familiar, even though I hadn't seen it before. But again, I'm trying to make an effort to go back and watch some of those old movies.
Yeah. I'm not a big old movie guy, but that is my favorite movie. It's
Love
just
it.
yeah. And can I tell you all of those quotes that they have, I'm shocked to find gambling in this place, right?
Hmm.
The one thing that is not a quote from that movie is played against him. They never say that in that movie,
Mm, mm.
even though that's one of the quotes that people always seem to remember from that movie.
Right,
Right.
right. Interesting.
So yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So yeah, cool. Well, there you go. There's a gem. Casablanca, kids. 1942.
Comfort. Yeah,
Yeah,
comfort in movies. Comfort in movies. That's the connection because I find like disappearing into somebody else's story is very comforting too.
yeah, I hear you. Very cool. So thinking about Casablanca, right? Far off lands. What do we do on a regular basis? If we go to far off lands,
Counties far, far away.
counties far, far away, counties people have never heard of, like Inyo
And
and
yo, I don't got no mono.
Mono and Lake and Trinity
Mhm.
and Siskiyou and Modoc.
This cue right back. Oh.
Anyways, so yeah, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about and car travels and I don't know about you, Tiff, but I hear this on a regular basis from people. So how do I do what you do? I want to do what you do. You ever hear
Mhm.
that?
All the time.
Right. And so, we have a website. So you want to be an instructor. And I'll put people towards that. But, sometimes they'll ask me, what is it like? I said, well, for me, it's everything I want, but, there's some real about it. Some real. Got to be real. Got to be real. Right. So it's, so just thinking about our journeys, right? How did you get to being a traveling training consultant with your own empire and business?
It started on a warm day in August. No.
It was the
Actually,
1st of September. Right, yeah,
exactly. No, okay, so what had happened was I was working as a county worker in this little teeny county in Merced. And um, whenever you work in a very small organization, whether it be a county or otherwise, like people wear multiple hats. And so we had a pretty progressive director, which hopefully we'll have on the show soon. Um, and one of the things that she did was create opportunities for different, like, I'm gonna guess I would call them stretch assignments, different committees and different things that you could participate and maybe get some cross training or work with a different department or have like a special task that maybe was outside of your day-to-day work. So she would make them voluntary, but she would create these different committees. And so one of the committees um, that she had was the training committee. And I was like, I'm not good at public speaking naturally, believe it or not. I'm comfortable with it now, but I that was always like my hardest subject was like speech and public speaking wasn't something I was good at. But I was good at my job and I wanted to try something new. I get bored easy, so whenever I feel comfortable, I want to try something new to be challenged, and so that came up. And so essentially you were training your peers. That was the training committee. You were training your peers. They give you a topic. You created a training and you trained your peers. And I was not good at it in the beginning. I would be really good at like writing the training materials, and then I didn't want to miss anything, and so I would stand up and I would like literally read it word for word, like read out loud. And people don't like that, by the way. Uh, so then I thought, oh, I that's not working. I know I'll put on a PowerPoint, and then I would read off the PowerPoint, and I just kept practicing and finding what worked for me. And then I became an induction trainer for the county, so I was training new employees, which is where I met my bestie, Kristen, and some of my other really close friends to this day. And I just did induction training, but I was new at the job and I loved brand new people because they weren't argumentative for the most part. They were like curious and wanted to learn. And I knew the programs well and I practiced and practiced and, started to find like my flow. Um, and then I just kept training like on and off. So when I finally left Merced, I trained for them for many years. And then I went to another county and they had no like formal training for staff. And it was sorely, sorely lacking. Like they're like you could ask three people the same question and get three completely different answers, like not even close to each other. So when I would talk with staff development in that county, which is usually responsible for training, and I would ask questions like, how do we do this? And they would say, oh, you have to ask your district. And I said, oh, okay, cool. So then I go to my district and I'm like, hey, how do we do this? They're like, oh, well, what did staff development say? And I'm like, they told me to ask you. And then they're like, oh, well, you go ask them because we don't know. So I'm like, who who knows what they're doing around here? As much as I love a challenge, I do also like clarity and I like clear expectations and I like consistency. And so I went to our regional manager at the time and told her, I know I'm new to this county and I'm new to this department and I'm not like the expert in everything, but I have a special skill set and I'm a good trainer. So would you be willing to allow me to facilitate a work group to do monthly trainings for our staff here? And I'll work with the experts and I'll read the policies and I'll make sure we have consensus amongst the four supervisors here that we're giving people the right information. Um, but I'll take on the bulk of the work in terms of like putting it together and training it. And she was on her way out. She didn't care. She's like, do what you want. And so I did it. I did it. And that was like what kept me sane in that period of time, like going back to what was familiar to me, because I just loved training programs. And and then I got the call from my buddy Kristen, who had gone to work for UC Davis, and her and I had kept in touch. I don't think we were at best friend territory just yet. We just had kept in touch, but we weren't like super close talking every day. And then she said, you trained me and you're the reason I became a trainer. And we're recruiting right now and we need your program. Would you be interested in coming to train for us? And she's like, you still have to interview and stuff, but you kept coming to mind. And I'm like, of course I would. And so I went to an interview. I met Kate in San Diego, which I had never met Kate before. This was my first time ever meeting her. And I did my interview in the lobby of a Hilton. And it ended up being like a 3 hour conversation. And I got onboarded and I started training. My very first training was for Santa Cruz County on policy development. And I was terrified and I thought it was the worst training I've ever given in my entire life. And I was ready to quit that day. And one of the people came up to me afterwards, like, this was exactly what I needed. And I learned so much today. And this part was especially meaningful. Do you think you could come back and do this again for the rest of my team? And I was like, okay. Like, I don't even know where to go from here, but okay. But it just evolved. And so I kept my county job for a while and I would do UC Davis like on my vacation days and stuff like that. And then I got to a point where I had to make the decision between keeping the county job or doing UC Davis because I couldn't keep doing both. Um, and it was a really like tough decision, but I really loved training. And so I left the county and I started doing this full time. And I've been doing it full time now for about 7 years, I want to say. And it sustained me through the pandemic. It sustained me after the pandemic. And I think I've learned, even though I'm the trainer, I've learned so much and evolved so much from just being a person of, I want to say a person of integrity that if I'm going to talk the talk, I'm going to walk the walk. And so like I can't teach a class about something that I wouldn't do myself. And I don't want to teach skills that I don't practice myself. Like I don't ever want to be a hypocrite. So um that's my journey. That's how I got here. And I'll probably do this till the day I die. I do have my own training. Like I do training outside of UC Davis. So again, uh, w www.givingthegiftcoaching.com. I have like over the last several years been called in to do like work for like smaller organizations, a lot of public speaking in the sense of lots of team building and um, cultural competencies where I get to go for just a few hours and do some training. But it's always rewarding. I don't know how you are as a trainer, Carl, but I don't try to please everybody. I just like if one person gets one thing, then I feel like I did okay. I keep the bar low so I'm never disappointed. People keep hiring me and they keep asking me for me to come back and for new content and so something's working and I personally get a lot of fulfillment out of it. It's exhausting work. I like today I'm like 100% out of gas right now because I had a really intense training day yesterday and a lot of travel today, but um if you were to ask me to do anything else in this world, I don't know if I could. This is like who I am. It's part of my whole self now. That's my journey. Lots of bumps along the way, but here I am. You're muted, my friend. There you
Well, I
go.
can tell you, I've seen a lot of growth, Tiff. I mean, you've come a long way from pay attention, bitches. This is important.
I never said that, not one time.
You said it
Lies.
with your
I
eyes,
never,
in your eyes.
never, never.
Uh,
What about you, Carl? How did you get here? I know your journey is a bit longer than mine.
no, it all started on our home planet, and it was dying, and my parents, they put me in a little spacecraft, and they shot me into the ground, and then they took off in their bigger spacecraft, and I got stuck here. And so,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. But no, so yeah, gosh, was working. I had moved from working at the Air Force Base. I'd done some, I'd done spent a lot of time with youth development and coaching, coaching kids in baseball and also working like in after school programs and as a teacher. And like you, wasn't necessarily, um, I didn't love having, public speaking, right? I could do
Mm-hmm.
it in the moment, right? But public speaking wasn't the thing that I thought I was going to be able to do. And went to, my job at the Air Force Base was ending, got a job with the county, and I was there and I was doing my case management work, and I was also in the midst of my case management work. I was working on my master's in instructional design, because I thought I was going to be in education somewhere. I just wasn't quite sure where and how. And so um, I worked on it, finished it, and excuse me, as I was going along, I noticed we in the county were teaching classes, and once a month for a week, we'd have somebody come up from Bakersfield and teach our clients classes. My clients would be in there. They always had nice things to say, and so then I approached the dude and got to know him, my buddy Miguel, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, so what is this?" Right? He's like, "Well, it's our classes that we have." I said, "Yeah, no, I know. I put my clients through it." I said, "But you know, what do you have to do?" He goes, "Well, I don't know. I'm the same classification you are. It's just I've been here maybe 5 years more, 5 years longer." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So this is something that you can do with our classification." He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, well, how do I sign up?" Right? And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Well, we're not really, that I don't know if we have any. I mean, I can tell my boss that you're interested." And so I just kept trying to find little ways. Hey, look, I know you're driving up here from Bakersfield and for a week and it's long so if you guys need somebody over here, right? But I also had not done my job for 2 years, so I could not transfer, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had to do your the 2 year stint before you could move on to different places. And so finally one day I checked in, hey, what's going on, man? You talk to your boss, anything, you hear anything? I mean, I got my master's in instructional design. I'm interested in, he goes, well, he was actually, we're looking to improve our program, and we want to expand it from a week to 3 weeks. We want to take over the traditional idea of the EDD workshop where people learn how to answer interview questions and dress correctly and complete a resume, and then, they get a job. He says, but, we want people to keep a job. And so we want to work on that. And I said, well, I'm down, right? I'm at my 2 years now. I'm mobile, right? I want to do that. And, he, and, introduced me to his boss, gave her, my the resume. I sent my resume down and, wrote a little cover letter. And so eventually I got in the program, and I got in the program as we were still teaching the 1 week class, which was called Life. And I taught Life while I was still carrying a caseload until we started developing this 3 week class. And UC Davis came to help us,
Mm.
right? And we had Maria Robinson there and taught us all how to dance, right? Beautiful person, love her to death. Nora came in. Actually, I saw Nora in Fresno as I was leaving. She was coming in. It was her birthday, and I didn't know it
Oh,
was her birthday, right?
love
You know,
Nora.
yeah, she was moving in all her crap. She carries,
She has a semi. That's what we
yeah,
say. Nora carries a semi.
and she always comes in the day before to set up for that morning. I'm like, God, that's a lot of work, but just got to process. Anyway, so we had a few different people come in and give us some training on teaching specific topics like money management, time management, organization, conflict resolution, right? All those motivation and engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Change management, our values, all those things that we had identified we wanted our clients to really think about, in terms of not just finding a job, but putting up with the BS when you have the job, what's going to carry you through, and really having all of those things in place. And so we did it. We started. We developed the program 3 weeks. We launched it, and I mean it was great. We had job developers in it. And I was training, teaching clients, for 3 weeks in a row, in in the desert, out in Ridgecrest and Bakersfield and all over the place, working with job developers everywhere, having a blast. I've never been so satisfied with a job in my life. And then the opportunity became to be a supervisor. I took that for a little bit. It was an acting job, and so um, yeah, I missed the cutoff for permanent by 1 week in terms of
Oh,
my start date. 1 week.
oh,
The person who was in my induction class got the job, but she started 2 weeks before I did, right? So anyway, so she got the job, so I went back to workshop, and we were doing all that stuff. And we got a new assistant program director. She had a different idea. She didn't value the workshops as much. And if you guys, trainers, you know how it is, right? And
yeah,
if you're the same classification, we started hearing people complaining about, well, how come the trainers get to just train and not have a caseload? I mean, they're social service workers too. And
right,
we're told you guys are welcome to come and try doing this for 3 weeks in a row. I mean, it's not, just wine and roses, right? And so, but somebody was wasn't necessarily as sold on it and believed that we should have caseloads. And so, some of my I was taken away from my supervisor who was amazing and supportive and just, such a great supervisor. I was sent back to, the supervisor in Mojave, even though she was a friend. It was something that just didn't really work. And I had a caseload. And so I had even just a caseload of 30. I mean, it's hard to teach all day and then still manage your caseload and try to
yeah,
make that meaningful. I mean, you're in the middle of a class and when your clients walk in and does a drop in, and what are you supposed to do? Right.
right,
And by that time, I realized what I wanted to do was teach and not have a caseload. And in the meantime, I got to go to a week-long um, training in Davis, and with all the Davis instructors. Nora was our MC, and I got to hang out with John Parker and all these other folks. And I went to Gina Monroy, who was our UC Davis connection, rest in peace, love her to death. And I said, I want to do what you guys do. And so she introduced me to her boss, and I sent a letter of interest. I sent my resume. I came up and did an interview in Davis, did a 10-minute presentation, said way too much information, spoke way too fast, and they hired me. And so I started doing work, taking my vacation days to go teach those classes. And in the midst of that, I was working on my PhD. I'd finished my PhD classes,
hmm,
and I knew that I was going to need some time to do my dissertation. And the money that I was making for UC Davis, if I worked for them, 7 or 8 days a month, I was making more than my county job. And so I was like, I can take the time to write my dissertation and to be able to make, you know, a decent
hmm,
amount of money. And so I jumped and did it in 2008, and everything was going great. And then the economy tanked, and in the summer of 2008, and the governor, Governor Arnold, he froze all the budgets in the counties. And I don't know if you guys know this, but somebody the other day was saying, well, I'm always worried if they're gonna, cut jobs, the admin jobs are gonna be cut first. I said, no, honey, let me tell you, what gets cut first is training.
yeah,
Well, how do you know that? Because I've already been cut.
hmm,
So they cut the training jobs. They cut all of our training budget in 2008, and was scrimping and scraping, scraping, working for UC Davis. I started working for another company, was helping with the career development plans for professionals in Silicon Valley. Well, when the economy went, all the Silicon Valley companies laid off tons of people, and so those jobs weren't there anymore. I had signed up to be a what you call substitute teacher in school district where my daughter went to school, in my old high school. Well, all those people who got laid off, they signed up on the substitute list. So that was saturated. So I had 5 jobs on the books. I was Jamaican as you could ever be, right? So many jobs, man, right?
yeah.
And I had five in December of 2008. I had 5 jobs on the books, and I worked a total of 3 days. 3 days, right?
I
And
could see that.
and it was terrible. It was. it was, I never experienced depression before that. And,
Right.
so it was something where you feel like you have everything in line and you are trying your hardest and something is thrown at you that you have no answer for,
Yeah.
right? So it was rough. It was tough. And, slowly but surely things started coming back and I was subbing and I was doing work and I found a job, as a trainer. I was still working on my dissertation, found a job in Sacramento as a trainer, went and trained people CPR, right? Crisis de-escalation. It was a great job. It paid really well. I was excited, and I was part of a leadership team, and they had like a three-team leadership team in the state, and they laid off one of them, and it happened to be ours. And so,
Oh,
so here I was back to square one. What am I doing? How am I going to do it? So
mhm.
I went to work. I did some work for Davis. I started working with Travel TANF and started doing some other things, and I was doing okay. But then I went to back to work for that company that I was doing training for as a program director for one of the programs in the Bay Area. Went back to the Bay Area, and I was still doing that, and still working a couple days a year um, for UC Davis,
Mhm.
and then got a job working full time at a bank back in Roseville. So I moved back to SAC and was still keeping those 5 or 6 days a year for Davis just to stay in the books. But I was working full time, traveling up and down the state for the bank. That's where I got to go to Mexicali and get my chinito food and everything else, and really loved it. Got to get my clam chowder on the coast and hang out in Pismo, and I mean it
Mhm.
was just I really enjoyed it, and it was doing really well. And then there came an opportunity for me to go out on my own,
Mhm.
right? Which was my boss saying, we're doing so good with training, we don't need trainers anymore. So what I need is a project manager. I said, well, I'm not a project manager. She says, I know.
Man, you
So,
had a rough go. This is
well,
this is a
this is the
stressful
thing,
story for me.
dude. I'm telling you, these are things people tell me. Oh, I want. How did you do it? And I want to be where you are. I'm like, dude, it's not. It ain't
Yeah.
all. You know, ain't all shrimp and caviar. You know what I'm saying? So I as I was leaving, I talked to my boss. I said, "Well, look, you guys still do your training, right? Are you going to still offer your training? I mean, it's leadership training. I created it, so why not hire me as a consultant, and I'll come and do it." And so I left as a full-time employee, but 3 weeks later, I taught my first class as a consultant for them, and
Nice.
I also let UC Davis know, "Hey, look, you have my full schedule," and so they made it happen, Captain. And in the meantime, I had a friend who introduced me to Sacramento State.
Hmm.
And so I got on their books. I got to connection with them and I started training for state workers, not just social workers. But so, I was training for, Sacramento State, UC Davis, for Rabobank and staying busy. And it was really good. And then I met your friend Kate and she
Hmm.
enticed me to come back on campus and be a curriculum developer full time. And I had about 9 months of that and said, Kate said, you're better out in the field. I said, I'm absolutely better out in the field. I'm dying on the vine. It was funny how much I realized how much this life is for me, and like you
Yeah.
said, there's no looking back, and so that fall, so it'll be 8 years where I've completely been out on my own without a full-time gig, without full-time benefits.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I'm able to buy a house and raise my daughter and take care of my family and go to whatever concert we want to go to. We're going to see Mary J. Blige this
Ooh,
weekend, right? And
Mary.
so but it also entails me, being out the house half of a month, but um that's the journey, and
Yeah.
I have no regrets. I love it. I love everything about it. And I couldn't change any of it because if I changed any of it, then I wouldn't be where I am today.
That's right. I remember I met you um as a curriculum developer because you were the one that was helping that we were reporting to when we were making the welfare work boot camp. And I remember I didn't even know you like personally, but I did cuss you out one day because in my mind, I didn't tell you to your face, but I cussed you out in my mind one day because it was like right before we were going to pilot it, and then you, and then you said, by the way, we need all these handouts on this template. And then we were scrambling like the last minute to try to put all of these worksheets and stuff on this stupid template, and it would not fit. Like you couldn't just copy and paste. It was such a pain in the ass. It took me the whole weekend, and I cussed you out every single day of that. I just want you to know that. I forgive you. I
Well,
forgive you.
thank you, especially since you know me.
Yeah.
And if there is a template that was something that I assigned to you, it wasn't my idea.
I know it wasn't, but you were the messenger at the time.
That's right. That's
And
right. That's
and
right. So
so
don't shoot the messenger.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
forgave you a long time. I never held it against you, but that weekend I cussed you out the whole time. The
Right
whole
on.
time. But I got
Right
over
on.
it. I recover quickly. I let
Yeah.
things go. Like I feel them like very acutely and then I let it go. So I let that one go. So I don't know. I just wanted you to know that, Carl. The an act of generosity. I forgave you for that.
You feel it acutely because you ain't ugly. Oh, you
That's
like that
right.
one, huh? I'll
There
be
you
right back.
go.
My food's here. I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So we are back in three, two. So that's our stories, and we're sticking to them. And
Mine is still continuing. Mine is still continuing, I will
oh, me
say.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
Bigger, better things, right? I'm looking for those as well, and always trying to make sure to stay as busy as possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I agree with you. There's like a panic that comes in every year. So, um, one of the things about this work, for those of you who might be interested, is to know that you only get paid when you work. And I mean like you only get paid when you physically teach a class. So there's a lot of work that goes in to giving a class before you give the class. So you have to develop content, you have to have PowerPoints, you have to have ADA compliant documents, you have to have a learning outline and checklist. It has to go through development, it has to be approved. Like everything's on a time frame, and all of the work that you do before you teach that class is not paid. So if you don't teach classes, you don't have income. That's just like the way it works, which is duh, right? You don't get paid if you don't work. But what the reason I'm saying this is that it's not like an hourly job where you get paid regardless of what you produce. You can produce, but if you're not delivering those classes and people aren't requesting you and you're not getting booked for projects, then you don't get paid. So you can say you work for this company, but you might work 3 days a year that's what you're if that's what people want from you. So it's highly, highly competitive, I would say. And you have to stay really flexible, right? Especially if you're doing this full time. A lot of people don't do this full time. A lot of people keep their regular jobs and just kind of moonlight, which is a great option for you because this doesn't come with health insurance. It doesn't come with like a lot of those benefits. But you get a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility. Well, and flexibility-ish, because once you've committed to something, you're pretty committed to it. It's not like you can call out the day of. I mean, you technically probably could, but it inconveniences a whole lot of people. So you have to be really dependable and you have to be really good at at doing what you do. Like the mediocre can't make it here.
You got to be tough. You got to have thick skin. And there are just as much as the two of us have been successful at this, I know many people who have tried and failed.
Hmm.
People who are just as talented, just as intelligent, even more,
Hmm.
even more knowledgeable and stuff. It's not an easy thing,
Mm-mm.
right?
No.
Especially if you have young kids. If you have young
I could
kids,
never have done this with young kids. Never ever. I feel so like when I first started, again, I really loved training. And so I was getting a lot of like value from it as a on a personal, professional level in terms of like doing what I feel like I was meant to do. So there was a lot of satisfaction in giving classes and I was getting a lot of positive feedback, which of course always feels great because I had worked for a county for like 5 or 6 years and felt like no matter what I did, it was never good enough. Like I was not like there was no positive reinforcement that I was in the right place. I mean, for my customers, yes, for sure. But it was like on the other side of it, it was like an uphill battle all of the time to just feel like I was making a difference. So um, when I started training again, I was getting a lot of like satisfaction because people are telling me like, "Oh, I'm learning so much. Oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. Oh, that changed, the way I think about life." And I was getting like, I don't want to say a big fat head around it, but definitely some fulfillment of like, okay, like I'm doing something that matters. I'm doing something that makes a difference. But like the reality is that the more successful I was at work, the less I was available at home. And my youngest son was my oldest two, or my youngest two were in high school. One when I started, the oldest one I think was already a senior. But my youngest one was still, I think, a sophomore. So the majority of his high school life, like I was on the road. Like I was on the road. I'm not going to his band meets, I'm not going to his football games. And I had been a pretty hands-on parent up until that point. But I was definitely like, I'm not going to say failing as a parent, but I was definitely not as present as probably I should have been in that time period. But the good news for me is I have really great kids and I had a really supportive husband. So he was there. But my kids and my husband don't always see eye to eye. So I would come home to a lot of like conflict and having to be the middleman between, two testosterone laden individuals with very different perspectives on life and trying to kind of keep the peace at home and still be home to like be present, make the food, do my laundry, unpack, repack. That was like my life for like 3 years solid. I would leave Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, and I'd come back Friday night. It was like constant for like months and months on ends. Like my whole first year of my marriage, I only saw my husband on Saturdays. And we had the honeymoon for like a whole year because we would be like happy to see each other. And then as soon as we would get annoyed, like it was time to go again, anyways. So it was like for a long time, that's what our life was like. And so, again, as much professional growth as I was having, I was definitely missing out in my personal life. And I didn't even realize like how much that was impacting me until the pandemic hit. And so what was like wild about the pandemic, very much like recessions, during global pandemics, training is usually the first thing to go. it's not it's not essential. It is an essential job, but it's not essential. Like you can live without training for a while, right? It's an important job, but it's not the most important job. I'll be real honest there. But with that being said, it like I went from go, 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 where that was like my only speed was go, 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 to like full stop. And the first couple weeks were great. Like I got to wear sweatpants. I got to feel like what it was like to be at home. It was really great. My husband was still an essential worker. He would go to work every day. I was baking sourdough bread, doing the banana bread, you name it. Like that was my thing. And then I got bored, like really bored, because now I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And that's when I went back to school and finished my degree, which I was something that had been on the back burner for like 15 years already. So I did that during the pandemic, but it really required me to kind of revisit the work life balance. I think that happened for many, 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 many people. And I realized that I could have it, I could have both, right? I could have both, but I had to prioritize my home life as much as I did my work life. And so I became a bit more intentional with like scheduling and making sure I wasn't going from like Crescent City to San Diego overnight, because that would be like stupid shit that I would do. Like say yes to everything and all of a sudden I'm traveling 7 hours after 7 hours on my feet in front of 45 people. Um, so stupid.
I made that trip, by the way. So yes,
So stupid. And after spending many like restless days at airports and, you know, being like platinum gold members everywhere you go for all your frequent flyer miles because you spend more time at Holiday and then you do at your own home. It was just a lot. So I still work, I think, as much. I don't work as much. That's a lie. I work as hard as I used to. I just am smarter about it. And I don't work Fridays anymore. That was like one thing me and Carl both strive to not do is work on Fridays, although it doesn't always work out for us that way. But I will say I work fewer Fridays than I don't work. Like I've been really good. I It's the exception, not the rule. And that I've been saying for like 5 years, I'm not going to work Fridays anymore. And I always end up working all the Fridays. But these last 2 years, I've been really adamant. Like I need to protect like that time because I get exhausted. You run out of gas. I'm out of gas today. This is why we're taking it easy today because I'm spent. And I don't. Does this happen to you too? I mean, let me ask you, Carl, as someone who does this professionally, does like March or April, is that where do you get like a fatigue around March or April?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Especially right around this time because this is when things are amping up,
Yeah.
right? Usually like towards the end of December, January, and then February sporadic. Seems like we get back on the horse hardcore starting in March, and I find myself much more tired than I used to be, right? And exerting all my energy during the class, but then just being spent after,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, it's hard enough being an introvert and using all my energy in the class, but I mean, this last couple of weeks, I found myself going to bed. When I get home, taking a nap, in the hotel room, like going to sleep 8:30, nine
Yeah.
o'clock maybe. Waking up in the middle of the night, going back to sleep. Just it's different. And
Yeah.
and then I know that this is when things pick up until the end of June, and then so I try to I recognize the times, right, and the zones that we're in. This next 5 months is
Hmm.
probably where I make 65% of my money.
Hmm.
And so, trying to, like I said, as tired as I am, keeping that energy up and just recognizing, taking it day by day. That's why, that's why it's important. We love what we do, and we get a
Right.
lot of compliments for how we do it. We obviously put a lot of time and effort into it,
Hmm.
and we care about the folks that we are working with. But, it's a grind. It's an absolute grind, and
Hmm.
it takes a special type of person to be able to put up with it. It takes a special type of spouse special type of family to put up with it, right? I just had somebody who was dedicating all his time to it, right? And he backed out. Last year he just backed out. He said, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I have young kids. I can't commit to this anymore. You know, I need to be able to, take care of my kids. I said, yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And while you're still in a position and you're in a great position to be able to, take care of your kids and retain a position of influence where you can make a decent amount of money, you know, do that. So but if this is something that you want to do somewhere else down the line, don't pull out completely, right? Keep your name in the game. That's why I said, those 3 or 4 years I was working full time and trying to keep my head above water. I still did the induction class in Alameda County that gave me 5 classes a year,
Mhm.
right? And that kept me current, kept me having a badge, kept me in the system, right? And people knew me. If they got good, I got good reviews. I kept getting good reviews so that when I told them I can give you my full calendar, they were ready to roll, right?
Mhm.
So I told them, I said, if this is really something you still want to do and you're passionate about, you know, you can back away. I backed away a few different times, but at the same time, you know, keep your name in the system.
This concludes part one of our episode. Stay tuned for part two, coming Tuesday with all major topics.